Hello, my name is Dale and welcome to the Talking Stick Show. So I'm joined by Andrea this morning. Hello, Andrea.
Good morning, Dale. Lovely to see you.
You too, my darling. How are you doing today?
Yes, I'm really good, thank you. Yeah.
Good. And so can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself then and what you do?
Yeah, so good morning, everybody, or good evening, wherever you are. So I've had quite a journey. It's been quite a long journey, I suppose, to get to here, where I'm at now. I started life as a hairdresser. I've been doing lots of lockdown haircuts.
I didn't mind. Mine used to get
all have been off. So started life as a hairdresser. My mum was a hairdresser, and I sort of flunked out at school, I suppose. I hated school from like day one, probably when I was 5, just the whole constriction of school. So I rebelled quite greatly throughout school, really. So I came out of the other end of it wanting to do nursing, but with no qualifications. So I ended up just following the path that my mum had already paved. She had hairdressers' shops already. So I went to college and did my hairdressing training, and then worked for my mum as well. So from age, I suppose, 19, I started getting into quite rocky relationships, so going for bad boys and that whole journey. So that took me into quite a turbulent, volatile few years, in which time I had my 2 children. My son, who is 30, my daughter, who is now 23. So both lovely. My daughter's just left home, actually. So I've got a bit of an empty nest at the moment. So throughout that, although the relationships were quite difficult, I had actually 2 that were particularly controlling, volatile. But through that time, I discovered yoga. So I had a panic attack and hyperventilated one evening when I think my daughter was probably 1, so she was maybe just a baby, really. And I ended up ringing a doctor because I thought I was having a stroke. It was really frightening. I was losing sensation in my fingers, and it was quite worrying. So, and the doctor came out, checked all my blood pressure and all my bits and pieces, and said he felt it was stress and it was a hyperventilation from stress. And he said, you really need to do something to address the stress. And he said, I see many women in these situations that, are suffering at the hands of men that are, quite volatile. So that kind of started a journey into yoga. So I bought a book, started doing a little bit in my bedroom, and just found that it really helped. It helped to keep me calm. I then discovered my mum had actually done yoga. She used to do yoga when she was younger. I always say that yoga kept me in that marriage for an extra 10 years because I had more resilience, I suppose, more tools to cope, to get through. And I come from my mum and dad were together. They've been together since they were 14. I'd come from a stable background, upbringing. My nana and granddad lived around the corner, and I'd had no experience of divorce or separation or anything like that within our family. So I tried to hold the family together no matter what. It was always, until I came to a point where it was just not functional anymore. The kids were getting affected. My son was 16 at the time and my daughter was 8, and I ended up just walking away from that, and started on a much deeper journey into where I wanted to go. So I ended up with a little bit of money from the house, and I moved into a small rented house with my daughter. And then just kind of sat back and started to heal. I bought a little caravan, just a small caravan, which I had up at Goathland. And we spent every weekend there, going to Whitby, being on the beach, being in nature, no electricity, no phones, nothing then at that time. And and just spent quite a few years really going there with my daughter and her friend and just being close to nature, allowing myself to heal. And I began learning. So I started studying Wicca and, more of the mystical side of life. And so spent our weekends there and then decided to start training in something different. So I was still hairdressing, mobile, and I had a good business, a good thriving business at the time. But I wanted something different. I felt that the yoga was really calling me, but I ended up diverting from that a little bit. And I went to college. I trained in massage therapy, aromatherapy, crystals, kind of really immersed myself in all these different modules. I started working, doing massage and things, Reiki. So that was about 13, that's about 15 years ago, actually. That seems like forever ago now. And then from there, I still felt the need to train in yoga. So I've been trying to find a teacher as I've been going along my path that taught about, rather than just the physical yoga, I wanted to know what chakras were. I wanted to know what energy was. I just wanted the knowledge, the wisdom of the internal world and the energy world. So I think there was a couple of teachers, I think one in York, or the other side of York, who used to drop my daughter off at school and then pelt over, actually near where you live, near Strensall, it was over that way, and pelt over there to get there for like 9. I think the class started at 9 to do an hour's class with somebody who taught a little bit about chakras. And my friend at the time, Sarah, she'd been going to this lady and she'd come across Drew Yoga, and which I'd never heard of. So she said, "Oh, you want to look it up? I think you'll really like it. It kind of has everything in it that I think you'll love." So I went to a taster day and I just fell in love with it. It's a bit like a kind of, it's energy-based yoga. It's a little similar to Tai Chi, Qigong, and it has those aspects within it. But they taught about energy, they taught about the chakras, they taught the spiritual, all the spiritual side, and the Bhagavad Gita, and all this lovely knowledge and wisdom that I picked up. So I signed up to do the training and went through the full 2-year training, which I loved. It was just so beautiful. And then after that, I started teaching 4 classes a week, and alongside my hairdressing. And I also volunteered on the teacher training course as well. So I used to go at weekends whenever I could, just to help support new teachers coming through as well. And then I think at the peak, I suppose, I was teaching 16 classes a week, which was a lot. It was a lot. And I didn't realise that much at that time, how much of a drain it can be on your energy when you're giving so much out. So I kind of cut it back a little bit over the years, and I've still carried on studying. I did some meditation teacher training as well, so I went into the meditation side of things as well. And then I suppose my kind of path then diverted a little bit into dance.
So going back into the past, let's talk a little bit about control. And so what was your take and feelings about the control? And for all of those who are listening who are in relationships where they are in a narcissistic environment, or they are being controlled and they're not able to fulfill themselves or live their own truth, what's your advice? And let's talk about control a little bit, of why it's so necessary for us to be able to free ourselves from control.
Yeah, so I hadn't actually realised, and it hasn't been until very recently, that there was a narcissism around in my parenting and in my parents. And I hadn't realised that until really recently, actually, since, well, my mum died. So my mum died, and then it became very apparent that there had been quite a lot of this narcissistic, and it was something that I'd grown up with. And I guess I think I was talking about this to someone the other day. I think we go to what is familiar to us. So if the male role model in our family has been of that nature, or especially for women, really, I think we tend to levitate towards that kind of male in our lives. So for me anyway, and everyone's going to be different with this, but for me, control is, to me, like putting a bird in a cage. It's when, we feel that we can't spread our wings, we can't be the person that we really want to be. And it, like, for me, it just crushes the spirit. It just crushes the spirit out of you. And, through 2 relationships that I've had where there's been control involved, there comes a point where you either have to just completely submit and say, that's it, I give up, or you have to find something that is stronger than that inside of you. And for me, in both situations, something huge came, like a power that I had never experienced before in my life, apart from when I was quite young. And a couple of situations happened when I was young, maybe age 7, that I can remember back, where my dad had tried to shut me down. I think it had happened in my teens, that there was a power, and I think it came from solar plexus energy, that just broke me out of wherever I'd been, wherever people had been trying to control me. I'd had it also with a teacher, a male teacher as well, and also a boy that used to bully me in the playground when I was quite young as well. So I'd had a few experiences of men and control and things like that. For getting out of that, it isn't so straightforward, because I think that it's easier in a way to stay within what you know. It's a really scary place, because over years, when you've been with somebody that's controlling you, that spirit in you is squashed, so that you have no confidence. I think at one point I couldn't even make a decision for myself. And this is the this is the game, I guess, of the narcissist, of the controller, is the game to close you down so that you don't have an identity anymore. You don't know who you are anymore. You lose who you are. And so it's very difficult to be able to step out of that and say, hey, I'm here, I'm leaving this situation, but I don't know who the hell I am. I don't know who I am. Yeah. So I would say, for people that are maybe controlling relationships, and, men can be in them as well, I know, Craig has had also kind of, similar experiences, in that I think you kind of need to reach out, first of all. I think, we do have, there are a few women's refuge places. I know that they are really oversubscribed. I think often I struggled a little bit to get the support I needed, because they just don't have the manpower or the woman power really to support. I think for me, I think one of the things that I did was, so when I was in the leaving process, I used to go and stay with my sister. So I had my sister would really support me. Parents were not so great at that, because obviously you're their child, and it is really difficult to see your child, in however old they are, in that situation. But my sister was really great, and I used to go on a weekend, stay and get in her loft space and just be. I had a little journal that I used to write down and start to create a dream of my future, of how my future life would be, so that I could put something real into being. Like, I guess this was the first time I started manifesting. I think the first book I bought during that time was The Power Is Within You by what's the name? Can't remember her name, lady who I started following anyway, but it was called The Power Is Within You, and I started reading that book, and that really started to change how I was thinking. And I left a lot of times. I left that relationship a lot of times before I finally left.
Yeah.
It took me a lot of practices to leave, I guess, a lot of times. And my friends just got totally sick of me. Every other week I was doing a runner, I was here, I was there, and I was so all over the place. And people do get sick of hearing you when you're saying, I'm going to leave, I'm leaving, I need to leave, and then you don't, and then you go back. But there has to be, that process has to happen. For me, I had to know that I had done everything that I could before I finally said, enough, I can't carry this on anymore. So, yes, I think it's having a bigger vision for yourself, having a vision that anything is possible. The first time, because I started practicing yoga, but I was reading yoga. I used to get Yoga Magazine every month, and I remember reading one night, and I was really in the thick of this marriage at the time, reading about a lady who had set up a yoga studio in her garage at the side of her house, and I thought, oh my God, if I ever to teach yoga. I never in my wildest dreams thought that would happen.
Yeah.
But it was a dream, it was there, and it was something that I could anchor to and think, so it's finding something that you see, that in yourself, that you have, and really anchoring to that. And every day, putting a little bit of energy to that. I had one of my teachers last week was saying about which altars do we dedicate to, and if we are dedicating to an altar that says you can't, you won't, and someone else is also dedicating to that altar as well on the shoulder, then we need to kind of change that mindset so that we start to dedicate to an altar that we really want for ourselves, because they say that we are the creators of our destiny. We really are. We really are. We can create anything that we really put our mind to. So
so the narcissistic tendency, so let's talk about codependency, and how does codependency connect to the narcissist and the controlling, and how do we understand if we are codependent on people?
Yeah, I think that, that codependency, I guess I always thought that man would change. I thought I could change him. I thought my love could change him, and all that fairy tale. And I think there is a fairy tale, I think, with little girls, that we tell them that this prince will come and rescue us and all of this stuff, like the tower and all of this. And these stories are great, they're so great, but they do create sometimes a bit of a picture of an unreal life, I guess, that the prince is not going to come and rescue us. So I think that, I guess for me anyway, so my dad had never told us, both, I have a sister as well, but never told us that he loved us. So we never had that confirmation of a male loving us, really. We just didn't have that. My mum did, and she said it a lot, but I think it's very important for a girl to have that confirmation that dad loves them.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. So I guess when I got into my early, well, probably around 10 or 11, maybe around that age, I started looking for that in males, in other males, because, you know, my dad wasn't kind of, you know, he just wasn't offering that. So, you know, maybe had boyfriends and, you know, one thing and another, and just trying to get that confirmation from a male, from a boy. And that led into, you know, starting to see boys from the age of like 13 and having sex quite young and, you know, that kind of thing. But I think it was now, like looking back, it would be this confirmation from a male that, you know, I mean, I think it is, I did read something about child psychology, that girls learn to kind of flirt with their dads in a way that they learn a lot of their relationship skills really through, you know, dad and daughter relationship. And, you know, I certainly didn't have any of that at all. And so I guess, yeah, this fairy tale that you can meet somebody that is strong, I guess. And I think that is another thing, that in our primal instinct, we look for a strong man to father our children as women as well. But often those strong men can be also dangerous. Mine certainly was dangerous.
Yeah.
And then we're in a situation whereby we believe that we can change that person, and we spend an awful lot of time trying to change them. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I got pregnant by, you know, I certainly wasn't planned in any way. And I was 21 at the time, so I was still quite young. And then once I was pregnant, then, you know, all my instincts were trying to hold this together, to hold this situation together, which was, you know, very difficult through having young children, young babies, and, you know, all the dynamics that then throws into a relationship that is really unstable and, you know, very, very volatile as well.
So looking at, like, before you were saying that you figured out you had some programs from your parents towards your children. Let's explain a little bit more about this, because I've got kids myself, and there are times where I'll say something and it's like my dad's possessing me or something, and it just comes straight out. Then I look back at some of the tendencies I have, and I'm like, that is a narcissistic tendency I've got off my parents, and it's limiting my children and their freedom and their free will. What are some of the kind of programs we have to be aware of about ourselves when we are being narcissist, or how can we separate the difference between our own self and the controlling side of ourselves?
Yeah, well, I think recognising it is, you know, the main thing. I think just having that recognition that we have that. And, you know, I will say I just did, it's really interesting actually, I just did a shadow course with Ben Calder just recently. Me and Craig did it, and it was really interesting to look at yourself in the shadow, looking at the shadow side of yourself. So for me as a parent, I mean, I really was a single parent, even though I had a parent, the male there, because he didn't want anything to do with no parenting. This was not his thing. They're your kids, you sort them out, and that was it.
Okay.
So there was no, you know, there was no support there. So I became mum and dad. You know, I think any single parent will say, you know, especially if you've not got a male present really there supporting you, that you have to be both those things, and it's not always easy. And I don't have that nature of being dad really, because I'm, you know, I mean, I guess with my kids I went to the opposite. So I actually gave my kids a lot of free space. I wanted to bring my kids up as free spirits, and I think my son would say I was stricter with him. I think I was a little bit stricter with him, whereas my daughter not so much. But I've always, I think I suppose for me, I I just went the opposite way. So I didn't put a lot of authority on my kids at all. As I say, I've said to them, just follow your heart, do what you want to do the right thing. Obviously, I taught them to do the right thing. But I certainly didn't bring in, I just was not, I just was not in any way authoritative. Sometimes, occasionally, if things got really out of hand, but I was to the opposite extreme of that. So I did not want to squash my children's spirit. But then having said that, I think that kids do need that boundary line, and I did struggle a little bit with boundaries that I'm still learning, and I'm learning that now still, boundaries, because I think when if you're a very open person and you want to give and give and give, you do have to be a little careful on, maintaining healthy boundaries as well. So I have learned through my work more than anything else, around keeping good solid boundaries as well. But I think for kids, as long as kids know that they're loved and they're wanted and they're treasured, and that's one thing that no matter what, my kids have always known that they're loved, always, no matter what, they always have.
And there's so every few weeks or every week we have a family ceremony where we all get together and we share the space and we start drumming, and we have people like Lily would lay down and we drum to her, then Peter. And it's for me really to have a deeper level with them, because at times things, because we've got a lot of kids, at times things do get a bit hectic and people's needs won't be met because there's so many children. So I have the ceremony to speak to everyone and make sure they know that everyone's equal in this ceremony, and we share this love together, and we hug each other when we say goodbye. And that's completely changed my life. From the first child I had, Heath, my parenting was so different back then until it is now. And I think for a lot of parents out there, it's to be aware that never putting blame on themselves and shame. It's just, we can come to some sort of change in our own process, and we can start today instead of thinking, I'm a really bad parent. It's maybe good to think, I can change in this moment, and I can grow, and I can understand myself more.
And we're evolving, I think we can only ever do the best we can do with what we've got at that time. I always say that my daughter went through a period of being really angry with me for quite a long time. I did affect her life. In effect, I did, by leaving her dad, and she was quite angry with me. And I think the only thing I could say was that I was sorry. I was sorry. I did the best I could do with what I had at the time, and that's all. And I think as parents, my parents would never acknowledge any mistake, any wrongdoing. So they would never acknowledge them within themselves. And the narcissist, if you will know this,
I've not done anything wrong.
They will not look at themselves. So they will not ever see that they've done anything wrong as far as they're concerned. Everything they do is right. And so it's very difficult to accept that. I mean, I have got to a point now of acceptance. I hated my dad. I hated him with such a passion. Every time he tried to stop me doing something I wanted to do, and I spent a lot of years in that place of really resisting and in anger and all of that stuff. But I feel now, I just accept he is as he is. He came to his place of narcissism through childhood trauma, and it is as it is. That's how he is because of that, and that's how he is. But I think that being real with our kids, being open with them, I remember my nana and I adored my nana dying when the kids were, I think my daughter was about 4, maybe 5, something like that when she died. And my husband at the time saying, stop crying, don't let me see you crying, But yeah, I was like, well, why? Why would you not let them see you express an emotion? Why would you not let them see that? You know, I never saw it. My mum was stoic, so you would not see her, you know, express. I think maybe one time I saw her cry in my whole life. We were always told, you know, like if anyone died, or just, you know, get over it, get on with it, you know, all of that. That was how it was all dealt with. It was all pushed under the carpet, just get on with it. There wasn't really, you know, when I think back, I didn't see a lot of emotion in our house, but it's made me more emotional, I guess. It wasn't always the case, but certainly now I never, very, very rarely will I hang on to something that I'm feeling. Well, I can't. I find it feels too uncomfortable in my body now to hold on to stuff. And, you know, I think my daughter's maybe not quite as, she maybe doesn't express quite the same. My son tends to tell you everything, like he everything with you, but he's a bit older. So, but yeah, I've always said to them, if there's anything that you want to talk about, anything, you will not shock me. You will not shock me. Like, you know, my life, I've seen a lot of stuff in my life. There's very, very little that will shock me. So, and unfortunately they did. So they do share with me, and sometimes I'm like, oh, right, okay. Sometimes I didn't want to know that really, but I'm glad you told me.
I've always said that to Gabrielle. We've said, because I've had addictions in myself in my past. So I've been like, when the kid, for me, when I went through this stage, so when I was about 18, I was in a heavy relationship for about 4 years, and all of a sudden it came to an end, and it was felt like my life had no meaning. It was all over. So I started to take drugs and stuff like that. And my parents completely expelled me against everything. They were just like, obviously, kick you out of the house or whatever, and you're not part of the family. And I didn't get integrated into the family. And I look back at that trauma, and I've always said, if any of my children go into the need to be addicted to something or go through trauma themselves, I'll always be there for them, and I'll appreciate it. And I think the parenting of the past is coming to a change now, where, like yourself, are realizing we have to stop this controlling way. Even if someone's going through the dark night of the soul and the darkest times, we have to have empathy and forgiveness and understanding for what they're going through.
You see, I think as well, you know, like our parents, I mean, I did, you know, got into drugs and stuff as well when I was younger, and you know, drinking and clubbing, you know, and God, I was like, I loved clubbing, nothing better to go raving all night, you know.
Yeah, I did.
Drugs. It was amazing. But, you know, I haven't taken drugs for a lot of years, but I certainly don't regret any of it. I had a great time. But having said that, you know, I guess, you know, my daughter, you see, again, my kids are completely different. So my daughter would never touch a drug, and she just won't. Yeah. She hates the thought of it. And, but my son went down that route really deeply. And, you know, it is really difficult to watch that. It is really difficult as a parent to watch that and to see it. And, you know, I was in a space myself. Luckily, I was in a kind of good space myself at the time that I could accept that this is something that is going through at that time. I always said to him, be safe, you know, be careful where you're getting stuff from, you know, if you're taking stuff, make sure you're getting it from somewhere that you know, or, you know, as much as possible, be safe. You know, and it is really worrying because there's nothing you can do to stop it either. They've got to go through their journey with it, and that is it. There's nothing you can do to stop it. And all I did then was love more. I just loved him more. As much as I could, every time I saw him, I love you, I love you. Whatever you're doing, I still love you. I was never reject you, ever, for whatever you're doing. Whatever you're doing, you're always my son, and I will always love you. So through that time, I mean, eventually, he came out of the other side of it, and he went on to become a personal trainer. Beautiful. And so, and he did go through it, but it took a long time. I mean, I think he was I mean, when he smoked his first joint, I think he was like 13, something like that. And that escalated into all sorts of other stuff. God knows, I know some of it. I don't know all of it, I'm sure. But that escalated quite a lot. And up until, I guess, probably till he was nearly 24. So I think around 24, everything changed and he stopped smoking the weed. He, just grew up a little bit. And, he's 30 now and he's still going through he's going through a lot of personal stuff now at 30, which I did actually. It's very similar. It reminds me very much of myself, actually. But when I hit 30, there seemed to be such a turning point at 30 that, what am I doing with my life? What have I done with my life? And where do I want to go? And we were having a discussion the other day about, he feels really lost at the moment. He doesn't know where he wants to go. And, I was saying to him, your story, your past, we have got to share this because it's going to help someone else. I always say that whatever's happened to me in my life, I can so resonate with on so many levels. Like I can hold a circle. I can hold a women's circle and I can resonate usually with pretty much every single story in that room. Whatever comes out, I have a part of me that's been there. And so, and I could say, well, I'm really ashamed that I took drugs. I'm really ashamed that I was in an abusive relationship. I'm really ashamed that I've been this, that, and the other. But I don't want to be ashamed. I want to own it. I want it to help others,
Beautiful.
So
I went through exactly the same, and I was so ashamed of my past that I didn't let anyone know, and to the point where I had to. And as soon as I let everyone know and came to terms of that, it's my story. And like you say, you can help people who have been through it. We're the healed healers, and we can.
That's it.
We've gone through that process, and as soon as I started being truthful to myself, to everyone about my past, and I've gone through this, I've done that, my whole life balanced out, and I had more clients to come see me, and everything I was like this whole weight got off my shoulder, and I could be who I was. I was felt a bit false, and kind of like I had this part of myself which I was not telling anyone, and I completely forgot about. But now I've owned it, and I've done healing where I've forgiven myself, I've forgiven all the past as much as I can. I've still got loads of work to do in it at times, but
go on forever.
It goes on forever. It's like a never-ending weave of things coming out.
Comes up.
And so as soon as I started being truthful, I was like, what, why was I scared of this? Like, no one's going to start like, again. And maybe it was my child of what my parents were like with me when I was still ashamed, and I felt cut off from my family and stuff like that. So in a sense that I thought if I tell anybody that I'm cut off again, and it's going to go through that. So I'm really glad we've been able to talk about this, because we're gonna go into different questions, but it's so good that the start.
And there's that, that human thing of like, none of us want to be rejected. We don't want to be rejected, but for me also that trying to be something that we're not, trying to cover that up is a form of control. It just masks everything, because if we've been born into this life to, we all have a dharma, we all have this purpose within us. And a lot of our purpose is about sharing our story. So wherever we've been, that is part of our purpose. So if we're then masking it, pretending we're all fluffy, fine, we're all good, things happen to me in my life, then where is the authenticity? Where can we then hold space for others? Where can people come to us and say, shit, my life's falling apart, or I'm in this situation, I'm in that situation? They will not feel they can approach you if you say, oh well, I'm okay, nothing's happened to me, but I'm just setting up here, and I'm I don't have any shit in my past. Nobody's going to feel that they can open up to you. Nobody's going to feel they can share their tears with you, or their pain, or whatever that is.
And there's a big...
So, if we step up and we say, well, shit, I've had all of this stuff going on. I've done drugs. I've, danced all night in a rave. I've been knocked sideways. I've had this happen to me, that happened to me. You can resonate with people because life is hard. As much as we want to say, oh, it's easy, we're in the flow and all of this stuff, which is great. But life will always throw us curveballs. The whole time, life will never be easy. We've just got to learn to plant our roots deep, own who we are, and, step up and say, right, bring it on.
Yeah. And there's a big part of like even the so-called, whatever you want to call it, spirituality industry, light working industry. There's a lot of people tend to get blinded by the light, and they live the light and be the light, and they forget about who they are, and they're so involved in the narcissistic of giving light, they don't realize they've lost control of their I am presence and
massive
programs, and they're just projecting light to everyone. I'm going to heal you, but realistically they need to look at the narcissist inside them and realize they can't control. And if someone doesn't want the light, you don't give someone light when they don't want it. That's breaking their free will.
That's it totally. Absolutely, totally. And as somebody said something which I loved, and it was your wound is your gift. I loved that. Your wound is your gift.
That's beautiful.
And not to be ashamed of your wound. Don't be ever ashamed of your wound, because that is where we get into our heart. That is where the light gets in, when we have those wounds.
Beautiful. And so let's talk about Radiant Woman. So what does this mean? So this is great. After all of that, we're like emerging into the Radiant Woman. So let's give a bit of explanation behind the name and where that came from.
So all right, so I've had a journey with yoga. I guess I've had lots of different names through my yoga, but Radiant Woman came during the night. My things come during the night always. Like I go up for a pee and I'll get a name will come. But this particular night I'd gone up for a pee or whatever, and I was thinking about a name because my mum had died, so I lost my mum 4 years ago to cancer, and my mum was a workaholic, and at the time I'd gone through like a 3-year journey with her through cancer. So from the start of it, from her being diagnosed with cancer, and it was a blood cancer, so it was actually bone marrow, so it was not a pleasant cancer. It was horrible, and but through that journey, I observed Mum, and I observed how she was very stoic. She didn't share how she was feeling. She didn't share her emotions. She worked really hard. She was always busy. And I have to be really careful with that myself, because I have picked up that trait, and I can be a bit of a nightmare for that. So she was always working. And through that, I observed it in myself. I could see this workaholic in myself. I was overworking. I was tired, pleasing others and all of that stuff going on. So I decided that, and at the time I was teaching a lot of yoga, and I was teaching to men and women, it was all mixed classes and stuff. But as I could see her sort of getting sicker and sicker, and we knew she was going to die, I decided to dedicate all of my work to women. So I could see, again, in the yoga world, and we see this all the time, this shiny yoga, and the yoga that's very active. It's very strong, quite male-led, really, yoga.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a yoga that really gave women permission to relax, because for women, we often, and I remember being there, I don't do it now, but I remember being in a place where I just felt guilty if I sat down. I just felt like I was being lazy or I just felt guilty. So what I decided to do was to start up classes that gave women permission to relax, so that the yoga would be slow, it would be nourishing, it would be nurturing. So I wanted every woman that came into my class to feel like they'd been really nurtured.
Yeah.
And then what I realised through slowing my yoga practice down, creating really feminine altars, like I had always had an altar of, yoga deities and things like that. But I decided to dedicate myself to the goddess energies. So I've been to Glastonbury. I'd really connected there, and I really got this strong essence of goddess energy and what that was. So I started on a new path through that, into working with the goddesses, creating beautiful feminine spaces, and teaching yoga that was more feminine. A lot of the time I got a lot of a resistance against that, because people didn't want that. They wanted strong yoga, they wanted sun salutes and power yoga and all of this stuff. So when I started out, it was really not that popular, because I was working with a lot of the spiritual side of it. But what came out of that, and what I found, was that when we slow down as women, and when we take time to relax, we allow this radiance to rise up to the surface. When we start living on purpose, when we start living from the heart, then our light, our radiance can shine. So that was kind of where the Radiant Woman name came from. It was about really encouraging women to align with their truth, align with their authenticity, live from the heart, and that through my own story, anything's possible. Anything is possible. I can do it, and if I did it, then someone else can do it. If I can go from a place of being so contracted that I couldn't make a decision, to then creating my own business, running retreats, running yoga classes, running dance stuff, whatever, that I've created, then other people can create equally what they want and more, and much more. So Radiant Woman is about that. It is about, I don't know whether if I've paved a way, I've paved a pathway for myself, and I would love to share that and, invite somebody that is stuck, that is stagnant, that is not living their truth. I would love to help them to align with what is their truth and what they want to, to get them into their radiance, or guide them into their radiance as well. So that was kind of the idea behind it.
Beautiful. And let's talk about dancing then. Dancing, how is this beneficial for us? Myself, when I used to go out there dancing on a night time, I used to go into a space where it's like I was completely free. But now it's kind of like finding that space again, but without doing the substances, and having more of a sane reality. So why is dancing important then?
So I started dancing. I forgot that I used to dance. Like, I used to dance. I danced from being little. I've always danced. I love, my parents always had music on in the house. I've always been brought with music. Even when I was in I was just saying this actually to some of my group, even when I was in really tricky relationships, when I was in my long marriage, I was allowed to go out every now and then. So I'd go out with my buddies. I've got 2 friends that I've been friends with since we started school together. So they're like my sisters. They're like my real sisters. And we'd go out, get absolutely smashed and go dancing. And God, I always used to feel so much better after those nights out. Well, not the day after probably, but I always felt better in my spirit. Like, my spirit was set free just for those few hours that I was allowed to go out and dance. And so I had a lady came to one of my classes, and we ended up in conversation, and somehow in the conversation she said that she taught belly dance, and I thought, oh God, tribal belly dance, and I thought, oh God, I'm that really feeling like that's resonating with me. So we started doing a trade, and I started going to her classes, she started coming to mine, and we did a little trade. And what I found with the dance was it was really building my confidence. I was feeling so much stronger in myself. I felt I didn't really get the dance at first, but as I got on with it, I really got this awareness of how this tribal dance is so powerful for women. And I started getting really into it. I went to a few of the tribal events, which were massive, and I couldn't believe how big these events were with these amazing women. And actually a lot of the women that dance tribal are, in sort of menopause. And I was also, I'd gone into the menopause phase of my life. And, the menopause in itself is a bit like a grieving process. You're kind of losing that youth and you're moving into these sort of more wisdom years. But what I found was that the women that were dancing were so confident and so powerful. They were tattooed and they were like really rocking their bodies, even though they were bigger bodies, or they weren't these stereotypical bendy wendy bodies. They were just really in their power. I loved it. So I've been dancing for like 3 years. I ended up 4 years, I think now actually, but I ended up doing my teacher training because I wanted to start teaching as well, which I did. But then from that, as I got more into dance, I started remembering dance and remembering how free you become when you dance. And I came across cacao and found that cacao as a plant medicine is so beautiful for the heart. So again, for this authentic radiance to shine forward, what I found was cacao was really unlocking my heart center, and it was also really kind of tapping into my creativity as well. So as that went on, I did some training with Natalie Southgate in the chakra dance. So I started doing chakra dance, doing chakra dance cycles and things like that. But somebody said, I think it was on one of my retreats, I'd done a chakra dance session, and she said, "Do you know what?" She said, "I think you could do this loads better. I think you could do this for your own playlists." So I've been to some of Nell's. I've been to one of Nell's, Nell Cook, who's done my drums. I've been to one of Nell's Sacred Feminine dances. And I went over to Nottingham and I did a Kali transmission dance, which was amazing. It was like a 4-hour crazy. I mean, it was just mental. It was all Kali energy. It was absolutely amazing. But when I came out, I walked out of there going, "Oh my God, I don't know what the hell that all was, but I want to do it." I really want to do it every day because it was amazing. So as I'd gone on and time had passed, I started just playing around with music and starting to put little playlists together, doing a bit of dance. I did some training with the Kundalini dance lady. And so just kind of touching in, I did a little bit of, there was a few different dance things, Shakti dance and different things that I just started playing around with. And then I ended up bringing together one night this spirit dance, which I thought, I love that name. That came during the night, spirit dance. I'd had these spirit drums painted because I'd started working with drumming. So the white wolf was the spirit drum, and then the one below is the barley spirit drum. So I had these two drums painted. And so I did a couple of events with cacao. So I did a cacao ceremony and then into this free dance with eyes covered or blindfolded. And the feedback I got was amazing. It was just like people were like, "Geez, this is like really powerful." So that brought me up to the end of last year. And then as we moved into this year, the spirit dance kind of got brushed under the table a little bit. I just didn't do anything. And then decided to go into training. So I was going to do the yoga teacher training, and which I've started writing, and all of that is ongoing, which that all starts next year. But then we went into lockdown, and as I'd had the little bit of time to rest and have a little think about things, where I want things to go and everything, I thought, I wonder if it would work online. So I put out an email to a few people and said, did they fancy doing a little spirit dance session in the morning? Which I started 7 weeks ago. So we do 7:45 every morning. We do a cacao ceremony, and a spirit dance session. It lasts an hour. Now, I've had many women from all over the country come to this session, and the feedback in 7 weeks I've had 2 women that have been on painkillers for 7 years, completely off pain drugs. I've had a lady who's dropped 2 dress sizes. I've got people showing up that have been on antidepressants that are feeling the need to come off them because this movement is just helping them so much. It's been really amazing. It's been really amazing. So the free dance it's just so freeing. It's just freeing for the spirit, for the soul. It allows that radiance to shine. It allows energy to move, because energy just wants to move. And when we're feeling stagnant or we're holding on to emotion, movement and dance, God, it just brings it to the surface, and it allows that release to happen, which then, prevents a lot of the time disease or dis-ease setting in. So yeah, it's been, dance is an absolute thing.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's like getting the seriousness off you as well, isn't it? When you go into the space,
it's joyful. Yeah,
there's you kind of have to stop your ego from coming into play and kind of go into the flow.
When you close your eyes as well, so when you dance with your eyes closed, it's a totally different experience. So it's sort of based in shamanic trance dance, really. Okay. And when our eyes are closed, when our eyes are open, we're thinking. When our eyes are closed, we're feeling. And a lot of what I do and how I teach in the yoga, in the dance, is about feeling. Drew yoga is a feeling yoga. The yoga training that I'm writing at the moment is specifically for women. So it's I decided last year that I wanted to write a training that was for women, specifically for women's bodies, for women's needs. It's not going to be power yoga. It's not Ashtanga type yoga. These male-dominated yogas. It's a feminine. It's all feminine. It includes free movement. It includes gentle flowing postures. It includes lots of rest. And the cycles and the rhythms of the planet. For me, that is so important, that we really tap into the seasons, the changes in the weather and how that affects us, the changes in the moon and how that affects us, as men and women. Yeah. We are affected as much as we like to think we can just keep pushing through and we can just keep going. We, seriously, for the future of this planet, we seriously need to get our shit together and get back in sync with nature's rhythms. It's going to be the healing of this planet.
And there's the time, the Roman numeral time, when that was created, it's kind of put us all into a timeline where we're basically addicted and dependent on the clock. So all of our self is running through the clock instead of expressing and feeling the universal time, the true force time of when the sun goes around the earth, and connecting to that instead of the space we're in at the moment, which is domination and control, where we are so controlled in every area of our life through tax, through petrol, through car tax, through rent, through mortgage. Everything's kind of taken away from us. And it's great for you to be able to help people with this dancing process, because that can bring us back to universal source time, where we forget about the clocks, we forget about our identity of being male and female. We become a non-agenda being again, and we can just express our true love.
Yeah. And men are more than welcome to come to my sessions, by the way.
How's your
spirit dancing, you're more than welcome. I think Chris has been in a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
A couple, yeah. So, men are really welcome to come in to our sessions, because, although I work with women, mainly that is my thing. My thing is Radiant Woman. We all have the masculine and feminine. So if a man wants to come in with his feminine energy, God, yeah, please do. Absolutely welcome. I'm not one of these people that say, women rule and men are shit or whatever. I totally integrate. We need the both.
Yeah.
What's going to carry us forward is that we bring together the masculine and feminine together to carry the new energies forward. And create a new world for our children, for our grandchildren, for all of those that are going to come, and heal the planet. And every time we dance, I always say to my group, every time we dance, we're dancing light onto this planet, we're dancing love onto this planet. This is what we need.
Beautiful. So we're running out of time for the show today. I'd love to have you on again, because
I'd love to come again.
Conversation's really expanded, and it's so nice to be able to go into so many different topics. So how can people get a hold of you then?
Yeah, so, Facebook probably, Facebook is Radiant Woman on Facebook. My website is www.radiantwoman.me, and you can get in touch with me through there. And if you want to join in, if you want to come and try out the spirit dance, the yoga, or anything like that, then just drop me an email and I can send out links for that in the mornings, and coaching, anything like that, just through the website, everything is there.
Beautiful. And I'll post a link below on the YouTube video for your website.
Thank you. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Dale. It's been lovely. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And if everyone likes what they hear today, if you'd like to click subscribe on the YouTube or post a comment, I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Bye.